the fact that this virus started in China. Some of the Indian researchers that you were telling me about, which I hadn't heard about this, some Indian researchers that had found some of their data that was pretty strange. You want to go into that a little bit?
So what they did is that when they were breaking down the DNA of this virus, essentially, or it's not really DNA, it's not really a living organism, it's a machine essentially, the RNA, I think, the code. They were comparing it against, and coronavirus is, this is not the first coronavirus. I think a lot of people, it's the first time they've heard
SARS
the term.
is a coronavirus.
But, there's a lot of different variations, and it comes from the term crown, because the receptacles on the top look like crowns, essentially. But when they did a study of the genetic code that sort of makes these things up, there was a lot of similarities with, I believe it was SARS. It might have been MERS, but I think it was SARS. But then there was a whole nother section of the code that basically looked like it came from the payload mechanism of HIV. So that transmission mechanism that makes HIV so dangerous and so brutal, because it can quickly bind to human cells, in this case specifically lung cells, which makes it essentially airborne. And in their analysis, it was two Indian scientists. And I will say, so it was, they kind of came up with a study, and no one wanted to do a peer review right away. And the Indian government quickly shut it down. And this was, I think, January too, when I was reading these reports.
Okay.
Which is interesting, because it really hadn't come into the zeitgeist of this country yet, or really globally.
Yeah.
People sort of didn't care about it, and everyone was sort of fine at that point with suppressing all this information, right?
Yeah.
But when they did the analysis, they didn't find any other coronavirus strains that had both the characteristics of the deadliness of SARS, but the payload mechanism of HIV. And, according to their analysis, the odds of it occurring naturally were slim to none, right? Lightning striking 1,000,000 times.
So
and
the bat and the wet markets, and the wet markets,
well, and again, it could come from a bat market, but
sure.
So interestingly, that like a wet market, but that wet market happens to also be down the road. Now, I mean, when I say down the road, it's miles, maybe like 20 miles or so, but in the same city of this Wuhan biological chemical lab, which is a 4-star level 4 chemical lab, which is the highest rating. They're doing chemical warfare, biological weapon research.
Sure.
And actively. So
who funds
and this
that?
is what got Zero
funds
Hedge
these?
booted off Twitter.
Okay.
Is they reported on this.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So
they
reported on this. The doctor that was the head of this one division in this lab, his whole research was on bat coronavirus, human to bat, or bat to human coronavirus transmission. Like, that's what he's been studying for 10 years.
Wow.
And in Wuhan, and that is his own lab, and they were hiring people, and they still had the open jobs posted on their website, like in January. This has all been scrubbed since then, but all this information and like these open positions for coronavirus research doctors that they're looking for. And they did a lot of work with, I know people in in Duke, basically the Duke Medical Research. I think it might be Duke in Singapore, technically. It's out of North Carolina, the North Carolina Duke University, but they have research labs all across the world. But and funnily enough, when you dig even further, so you know how Facebook is censoring a lot of coronavirus stuff, and they're fact checking, and anyone that's false information, they're just scrubbing it from the internet.
YouTube too.
Well, sure, YouTube now too. Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm sure, yeah. But they're like, I don't know if YouTube's scrubbing it or if they're just like,
not scrubbing it, but they're and then they're also putting Wikipedia links and.
Facebook's just outright removing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
so Facebook, one of Facebook's fact checkers, is this lady who works for Duke Medical that worked at the Wuhan Biolab facility. No joke. So Facebook's fact checker for virus information worked at this Wuhan biochemical lab.
Okay. Wow.
Right?
And this has all been confirmed.
Is that a coincidence?
Right? I mean, this is all fairly confirmed. You know, there's people that put your tinfoil hat on. This is, you know, conspiracy theory. A lot of this stuff, if you don't really have to dig too far to see a lot of red flags.
And the red flags to me are that they're removing it quickly. You know, if it's false information and if it's bogus and if it's not, like, no government cares. Like, there's just crap on the internet all the time that is false. They don't fight it. Well, why would they put all their weight into removing this and discrediting these scientists and squashing any of that early research into any of this? And now it's on Fox News, and Trump's talking about this lab this past week about we're sending the intelligence officials in there, and we wanted to get in there and audit this lab. So now all of a sudden, you know, it's taboo. We can't talk about it. We're scrubbing it, and you guys are all kooks. And now the White House is investigating this lab. And today, this won't get much play in America, but the Chinese are doing the same thing too. And so one of their spokesperson, there's a Chinese spokesperson, but like a news anchor in Arabic, which I find interesting, was talking today that this was actually spread by the U.S. out of Fort Detrick.
Yeah.
And Fort Detrick, our big bioweapons lab. And so a Chinese news anchor today in an Arabic show basically said that the coronavirus, this COVID-19, came from the United States military out of Fort Detrick, and that last year, sometime around April, and now this is the true part, they shut it down for like a month or so, or I don't know how long they shut it down, but they basically had some unsafe practices and felt like some of the stuff was leaking from Fort Detrick, and last April shut it down. So that part's true, but regardless, a Chinese like news personality in Arabic just today is just spreading that the U.S. government's actually the one responsible for spreading the coronavirus, and said that we created it. That was man-made.